Oxford, England, is Richard Johnson, lecturer in US politics at Queen Mary University in London. Thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to ask you about Steve Bannon, because he's obviously he's obviously got close contacts with President Trump still, very much coming into the fore again, and speaking of how there'll be blowback for anyone that opposes President Trump right now. It's quite a threatening message, but do you think it'll be effective?
Well, it'd be effective with a subsection of Trump voters. And I guess what we have to think about is when the different campaigns are putting out their surrogates, the surrogates are not talking necessarily to the same people. So Steve Bannon is not someone that the Trump campaign is putting out to talk to swing voters or people who voted Joe Biden at the last election. Bannon is trying to talk to those people who have stuck with Trump from 2016 to 2020 to now. And in a sense, Bannon's message is one of trying to raise the stakes of the election to mobilize the kind of core MAGA base of Trump voters.
And with this latest ad from the Biden campaign, we've got a sense of his strategy as well going ahead, which is very focused on Donald Trump's criminal record. Who's that going to appeal to? Because there's been lots of polling to suggest that none of these trials have affected his base. But I guess we're talking about people that may be swinging in either direction right now.
When I look at this ad, I see a classic example of what we call in political science negative partisanship. So what we have in this election is we have two candidates who both have high unfavorable ratings. Joe Biden's unfavorable rating, historically speaking, would not be the kind of rating that would see you get reelected, except that Donald Trump also has extremely high unfavorable ratings. And I think what this ad is trying to do, in effect, is for the Biden campaign to say to voters, okay, you may not love Joe Biden, but you really don't like Donald Trump. This is not an election where it's both are equally bad. One might be bad, but one is even worse. And negative partisanship is when you vote to stop another candidate from winning. And in effect, that's the message they're saying. If you want to stop Donald Trump from being reelected, you're going to have to hold your nose and vote for Joe Biden. Don't stay at home. Don't vote for a third-party candidate. Come out and vote for Joe Biden. And they realize that those voters ultimately, I think, will decide the election.
And I guess they're the ones that will go into the voting booth. And even if they've decided to vote for Donald Trump, there might be some hesitancy in actually ticking a box next to someone that they feel may not, have faith in the legal system.
The two criminal convictions of the past weeks have been very interesting. How the campaigns have handled them. So Trump's message has been that the system is rigged, the system is illegitimate. This is a witch hunt. It's the familiar line from Trump. Joe Biden, with his son's Hunter's criminal conviction with regard to drug and gun use, Biden has taken a very different line. Biden has effectively said, I love my son, it's a personal tragedy for me, but I respect the system and I will abide by the system. Trump says he'll pardon the people who stormed the Capitol on the 6th of January. Biden says he won't even pardon his own son. And so I think what Biden is trying to do in thinking of the politics of this is to say that he is someone who will uphold the rules. For some people who vote for Trump, they vote for Trump because he's a rule breaker, but those aren't the people that Biden's really trying to speak to. He's trying to speak to the people who might not like him, Joe Biden, but don't like the chaos that they might have associated with certain elements of the Trump presidency.
Richard Johnson, as ever, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Russia